Hey guys, Veronica here. So I'm in the nursery right now, and I was going to do this as a greenhouse notes, but it's really hot in there and my infrastructure is not in place. I've realized that there's a hose missing and an extension cord for the fans. So instead of messing with all of that today, I just wanted to give you sort of like an unboxing almost of the sort of stuff that I pick up at a nursery. Because a lot of times people ask, what should I be planting or growing, or kind of walk you through that process. And that's sort of what I'm going to do here today. So I just wanted to show you some of the stuff I got the other day at the nursery. As you can see, I've been gone for 3 weeks. I'm not sure that everything got a ton of water. It's been fairly hot and dry here still, with little bits of rain here and there, but not the cooler weather that we're expecting quite yet. But of course, I went and bought more plants because I figured if I got to catch everyone else up, might as well catch these guys up. A few of them have melted down in my car this morning. I did not pull them out as early as I should have, but all of that aside, this is sort of what I look for when I go to the nursery. So just to kind of kick it off and give you a little bit of background as far as what I'm planting, it may not be the same sort of stuff that you're looking for, but for me, it's good to have a goal in mind so that you don't go like totally hog wild. I don't like to buy a lot of annuals at the nursery. I feel like I can direct sow them or start them in pots here at home and have them catch up effectively, that they're not as worth the price. But I will go out of my way to find perennials and biennials sometimes that maybe have a little bit more of a start than say if I were like getting cuttings from a friend or something to try and root, that these guys are already ready to go in the ground and I can grow them out from there. So just kind of walking you through this. A lot of times I'll look for harder to find herbs and spices and some vegetables even. And so like this is a Syrian oregano. It's called a za'atar oregano, and the scent on it, well, I like it because it's does pretty well in full sun compared to some like the softer leaved oreganos. It has like a little more of a fuzzy succulent leaf, but the scent is just like everything that I want in an oregano. And I already have, kind of your basic varieties floating around here. So I wanted something a little bit more unique. Again, they call it a za'atar oregano. So thinking of like za'atar blends that you'd use on flatbreads, obviously, but also like chicken or a lot of different meat rubs and whatnot, even like pizza and pasta, you can put it in place of, your typical Italian oregano or Mexican. So just a little something different that I can kind of propagate out and put throughout this perennial landscape that I'm creating here in the woods. And I've noticed annuals are not doing as great in this space with like the peppers and whatnot, and we'll look at them here over the next week or so and kind of try and address what happened. But I'm moving towards kind of trying to scale this project back into like a more local area that gets walked through and has hose access, and also just really focusing on building out one space before expanding way out into the woods like where I started. So lessons learned throughout this year. I think as we get closer to the end of the year, kind of addressing all of the decisions I made early on and what I would have done differently, or how I'm building on it moving forward. So there was that guy. I also got this Provencal, yeah, I want to say that's right, thyme. It's like a French one, and I really liked, let's see if I can get this to focus. Yeah, I really liked this one based on the growth structure of it. It's a little bit more woody looking than a lot of times. Like the branches are actually pretty intensely woody. So I thought that might be a good call for surviving drought, something that kind of has like the shrub sort of vibe to it, like a lot of our brush and chaparral does around the edges of the woods, like kind of moving into the field space and whatnot. So there's that guy. We're gonna have some light issues because it's like midday right now, but I just wanted to get this done while I came out here to water and check on things. And so there's that guy. This is one that I have in every garden, and I was super happy to hunt down a good-looking specimen this past weekend at a nursery in Austin. So this is salad Burnet, and this is actually a really nice sort of pot herb to have. If it's happy, it will be very happy. Like once you find a spot in the garden where it wants to exist, it just kind of mounds out into this big, almost like a shrub really. And I had one in my garden in Los Angeles that just kind of kept spreading through root clumps, and I would dig them up every so often and give them to friends and neighbors. But it'll get, you know, like 2 or 3 feet wide and then like a foot to 2 feet tall. Really nice sort of cucumber flavor to it. It's great in salads, hence the name salad burnet. But also just like really nice to throw in, you know, a glass of water or just wherever you want that cucumber flavor. Much nicer fresh than dried, I think. But also just, you know, a sensory herb when you're walking around and you need something that's like a little cooling. Like, it's just, I love it. So always that in a pitcher of water, especially when you don't have access to fresh cucumbers. It's a good stand-in, but really nice in salads and dressings and whatnot too. So that's like one of my must-have. If you're looking for a recommendation, salad burnet. It's not, I do not believe that it's totally frost tolerant, although the one I had in Los Angeles survived like 5 years with, you know, some level of cold and whatnot. So maybe not, you know, like hard freezes. And this guy might actually live in the greenhouse through the winter, unless I can find some place to kind of cover and protect it with some mulch here. There we go. Like light issues, yeah. But we're doing this live. So as always, I pick up a couple of yarrows. Yarrow is one of my favorite plants just to have in the garden. I find it to be a very magical flower. It blooms almost year-round in most areas that are not really cold. It will withstand most frost as far as I'm aware. It always came back in California and we got some pretty hard freezes. So I'm not super worried about it freezing. I'll probably find a spot that's semi-protected to plant it out. And the insects love it. So it's one of the first things to bloom, one of the last things to stop blooming. With a lot of these different varieties, I try and get different flower colors. I found a red one, which is very exciting because a lot of times they're white or yellow. Our native one, I believe, is white. So, and that one kind of comes and goes over the course of a few months in spring, but with a lot of the cultivated species, they'll grow all through the summer and they'll pump out a lot of flowers. It's a really lovely herb to have around if you're doing a lot of like herbal medicine and whatnot. And, you know, do your research there on that sort of stuff. But I love the way that it smells, and I just find it to be kind of a necessity for me in the garden without it having, you know, getting into like the edibility or anything. This one is one that I had, and I don't know what happened to it, so I got another one. It's Mexican tarragon. It's also Mexican mint marigolds. They've called it Texas tarragon. It goes by a lot of different names. I don't think this has, oh, it does have the Latin, so it's, yeah, Lucida is the version of marigold. And so it is in that family, but it's really nice because it's heat and drought tolerant, and you can also use it in place of tarragon. So if you live in a climate, the sun's moving. If you live in a climate where it's a little too hot for tarragon, which tends to be kind of finicky, and for me and most of the places I've lived, it's like spring or summer and then dies in, or sorry, spring or fall and then dies in summer and winter. This, you know, is a good dupe for tarragon. So if there's something you really love to eat and you're having trouble growing it, maybe find something in a similar flavor parallel, but a plant that's more adapted to your region. Let's see what else. I got some garden sage because Thanksgiving is coming up and there's lots of holidays around the corner, and there's lots of great dishes that you can make with sage, and it's just a nice sort of like earthy, comforting flavor to have on hand at all times. I'm pretty sure that I actually have like multiple sages around here, but for whatever reason I just always feel the need to get more of it. I don't think that you can ever have too much. It dries well, it fries well. Like, it's just, it's one of those kind of eternal plants that just, yeah, I like having it. So if you don't have sage in your garden and, you know, you're cooking Thanksgiving this year, I highly recommend that you go and get a plant and stick it in a corner somewhere versus, you know, paying the same amount of money for some cut sage at the grocery store on the produce aisle. Let's see, I picked like the worst sun spot to do this in, but we're going to roll through these. So this is a fun one. This is actually a Cuban oregano, and you can see the leaves are kind of succulent looking, and they actually feel like thick and succulent. Again, it has that oregano flavor and scent. It's actually fairly spicy in terms of oreganos. And it also fits into, there's a category kind of in like the Caribbean that they call bruja plants, because you can take any which is like a witch plant, right? You can take any bit of the leaves and stems and whatnot and just stick them in the ground. It'll grow a whole new plant because it has that sort of succulent appeal. So I really love that one. And when I came across it, I had to grab one because I haven't had this one in a couple of years. I think it's just a cool looking plant because it gets massive for the size that it starts at. I got a couple more asparagus, even though I have some that I started from roots and seeds that are out in the woods. I wanted to kind of move some a little closer to like this main thoroughfare area. And these are a purple variety, which I'm not sure that I have any of them over there. So I figure the more the merrier. Can't really have too much asparagus until you do. So just a few more to kind of like mix in with stuff. This is why you don't leave plants in a car during the daytime, plants or pets or people, with the windows closed, because you're going to get this sad looking wilted, but it'll spring back. You can see the base is still green. So it was in there part of this morning and I should have pulled them out sooner, and that was my bad. This and my Australian violets, which I'll show you here in a second, but they'll bounce back and they'll be okay. But I'm sorry that it caused you guys a little bit of stress. So yeah, this is a Doublemint spearmint. I grabbed it because it's a apple mint variety, and I like apple mint, but this one just had a nicer sort of scent and flavor to it. I do taste stuff at the nursery. I'm not sure that that's like advised, but you know, your mileage may vary, and be careful with your own health. I like to live on the edge, I guess, and, you know, give things a nibble if I'm uncertain based on scent. So that one's going to go in some place where it can go crazy because I need a little more mint in my life. I don't seem to have as much planted here as I'd like, and I don't mind it. I hear people talking about it on the herb rows at the nursery, and they're like, oh, it's going to be invasive, put it in a pot, and I'm just like, you know, the more mint, the merrier. Dry it and have it for tea and give it to friends for Christmas or whatever. Like, I don't think there's such a thing as too much mint. But again, you know, do your own work in your own garden as you see fit. I have a little more space to play with here in the woods. Following along that mint, this is one I've been looking for. Oh, that's nice and bright right there, actually, in that light. So this is a Corsica Mint, and it actually grows, it looks almost like a moss, really, when it's growing. And it grows like just creeping along the ground, and the scent and flavor of it is just like such a pungent mint. Really good medicinally if you're, again, dabbling in that space, but kind of looking at it as a mint that it could be infused into stuff, and balancing between the other ones that I have. So I was very excited to find it. I might propagate this out in pots a little more before putting it out in the wild. We'll see how it goes. When you buy herbs in these like 4-inch pots, a lot of times they're $2 or $3 a pop, and so it adds up. But if you take really good care of them and you can propagate them out, then it's really only that initial investment to get the germplasm that you're looking for. And then beyond that, like, you know, they're kind of free. It's just the elbow grease. Who else is behind me here? So, this is one that I've had before, and it's disappeared. And I'm not actually sure that it's the same, but this is a Herba Buena, so it's another type of mint. And I just love the scent of it because it's so fresh and bright. A little more on like that sort of spearmint end of things, but it's like a Mexican variety of mint, and I adore it. The other one I had slightly rounder leaves, so it might have been related, but from a different region. I'm not entirely sure. Very similar in scent, a little bit more uplifting than this one, but overall, like, this kind of fits the bill that one was. So unless that one springs back up when we get some rain, it's good to have a little backup to fit into that space. I got a couple of artichokes because, you know me, and I love a good experiment and to, you know, struggle with some plants. I've been looking for a particular type of purple artichoke, and I wasn't sure which one it was going to be, so I got 3 of them. And I don't know if they're going in pots yet or if they're going to be out in the wild here yet. Still figuring out placement for everything. I do recommend, if you have a smaller space, to kind of like plan where things are going to go and if you have room for them. But given the nature of this space that I'm working in, I kind of go crazy. Not too crazy, but a little crazy at the nurseries, and then figure out where things are going later. And I sort of have like an idea in my head of, you know, what's coming out, what's moving around. what direction spaces are going in. So I'm hoping you guys can actually see this. I think so. It's just going to be funny lighting. So these guys actually survived fairly well in my car. So this is a kind of good example, actually. I'm going to put it side by side with these other violets. So I got these Australian violets. They melted down a little in the car. And then this is a common violet. This is like a native variety that will grow here in the woods that I haven't noticed too many of, that are starting to go to seed. So I'd like to get them out there to kind of start spreading. But it's really interesting to see just how much more tolerant the native variety is of the extreme heat of spending, you know, a couple hours of daylight inside of a closed vehicle versus the ones that are a little bit more finicky, like this Australian violet. But I got a few of these because the scent is so beautiful, and I'm looking to work more violets into both my landscape as well as just, you know, food and drinks and teas and whatnot. So I wanted to play with that and see, you know, which ones are going to spread. Again, I'm trying to build out an understory in these woods here. There's not a whole lot going on aside from briars, and opening up the canopy just a little so we can get enough light on the ground so that we can get understory plants in there, so I can make it really difficult to film like it is right here where the light's like, because there's not a whole lot of overstory. Two more things, which are a little bit far behind me. So this one I was very excited about. And so this is licorice, like the licorice that you'd get, the flavor that you might have had as far as candy, although a little more natural. Some of those are kind of artificial licorice. And so this is the source, like, of that licorice flavor. It's something that's been on my list for a while. I saw that there's a lot of budding going on near the root zone where it's either going to send more branches or roots. And I figured it was worth getting just for propagation alone, but also to work into the landscape here. It will get cold here fairly soon, and I'm going to have to start, you know, wrapping plants and whatnot, as far as like the avocado and, you know, the things that may not be able to take freeze this first year for sure. Then looking at it moving forward. But there's also some things where I'll be able to put them out if they're not really soft, and then either mulch them or cover them with like a container or something just to try and get them established. So I'm watching the weather and doing that kind of on a case-by-case basis. And if you have questions in that space, like, you can ask them below, and then depending on how many questions we have in that space, I might just answer them, or I might cover it in a separate video. Haven't decided yet. Literally just got back yesterday afternoon. So the last thing I have on this list to show you guys is this possum purple passion fruit. Say that 5 times fast, right? So we have a passion flower that's climbing up the front porch here, and it's really beautiful. And the thing about it is that it doesn't actually produce edible fruit as far as I'm aware. And I wanted a fruiting one. So you have to look for the one that's the Passiflora Edulis. It will say this word right there. It'll say Edulis somewhere in the name if it produces edible fruit. And that's how you know that you're planting and growing one that is going to be for human consumption. Again, a lot of the varieties can be used medicinally. You got to do your own research on that. I'm not here to give advice in that space, but I definitely wanted to get one in because I love passion fruit and passion flower. Like, get one in that I knew would produce, because that's the whole goal of growing, right? For me, at least, is to have more food sources that are regenerative and local and going to be perennial throughout this landscape, so that we can continue kind of spreading it outwards until the entire property is covered with it. So that's basically a little unboxing. I know that was a little bit long, but if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. As always, if you like what you see, please hit that subscribe button and follow me on Instagram at FlavorKit for all of this sort of stuff and more. I just got back from a couple of weeks in Puerto Rico where I was exploring and learning things there. I have a few things and stories and posts on Instagram, like literally, if it's not here, doesn't mean that there's nothing going on. It just means that I probably haven't had time to make a video recently. So that's a good spot if you're like itching for more content at any given time, or have a question that you want answered. Leave them in those comments as well. But until next time, happy gardening.